Howdy and welcome to episode 73 of T-Shirts and Shawls. I'm Karen and today is Thursday, March 28th, 2019. So it is 1 week away from setup day for DFW Fiber Fest, so I still have a lot going on and I'll talk about that a little bit. But I want to share a project that I finished and some things that I'm working on, and so we'll go ahead and get started. So I finished Birds of a Feather. So I think when I showed it to you last time, I was in the middle of a row, so you didn't really get to see basically the whole shawl laid out. It is a very big shawl, so there's hopefully a pretty good view of it. This is a shawl that is a fingering weight yarn. In this case, this is my Camelot Merino Cashmere Nylon yarn base, and then a lace weight blend of mohair and silk. And my first time really knitting with this mohair silk, it was a challenge to knit with because it's so fuzzy. It's hard to see on the needles where the stitches are. Would I ever knit with it again? Maybe, but probably I wouldn't be super quick to jump to it. I did enjoy holding it with the fingering weight yarn, even though it doesn't show up super well. You can kind of see a little bit of lines here, and if you look closely, you can definitely see the fuzziness. But in this very last section, you held the mohair lace with the fingering weight yarn, and I did like that. So I think in future, if I'm going to use mohair silk lace, I would hold it with another yarn. That I can get behind. But anyway, so this is done, yay! It will be a sample in my booth at DFW Fiber Fest, and I will have some of the mohair silk lace weight yarn available for sale in my booth too. Yeah, this one just felt like it went on and on and on. It is mostly garter stitch. There is the decrease in the center. There are a couple of lace panels every now and then, just kind of a basic ripple, kind of feather and fan, I think. So overall, it felt like it took quite a while to make, and I think that I got tired of doing the garter stitch over and over and over again. But I really do like the finished object. So I would probably never make this particular thing again because, like I said, it was kind of a bit of a slog, but I think that ultimately the finished object was worth it. I don't know with the mohair silk, if you wear it, how much that's going to like get on your shirt. As I was knitting with it, it would definitely get on my shirt, especially if I was wearing a dark shirt. So that might be something to consider and think about if you're going to be using this yarn, whether in this project or in any other project. So just something to think about. It is definitely a very fuzzy yarn. In fact, when I dyed it, I usually reskein all of my yarn, and I did not reskein the mohair silk because it is so fuzzy, and I knew that if I reskeined it that I would just have, even when I reskein some of the other yarn, I get fuzz kind of popping up, and I knew that it would be really bad with the mohair silk. So I did not reskein that, and because of the fuzziness, whenever it gets wet, it's gonna kind of like interlock a little bit, so it's not felted. I was very careful not to actually felt it, but it is going to kind of stick together a little bit, and I did want to reskein it for that reason, but I really just couldn't get into the idea of reskeining that many skeins of it. So if you do buy it, probably not just from me, from anybody, just be extra careful as you're winding it into a cake or a ball. You probably don't want to go super fast because you might need to kind of tease apart some areas. Again, it is not actually felted, but the fuzziness is going to kind of grasp onto the fuzziness next to it, especially when it's wet. And that was Luna. Little yelp there. She is trying to get to Wally, who is hiding underneath the little wheelie cart thing that I have over here. So hopefully they will be well behaved today. Anyway, so that is what I've finished. So now that I've finished Birds of a Feather, and last time I showed you the 3 sheets shawl that I finished, I don't have that much on my needles right now. So I decided to focus on finishing this brioche project that I've been working on. So this is Donita by Leslie Ann Robinson. And I am at the point where it's definitely scrunched up on the needles, so you're not going to be able to see the full shape of it. But there's brioche pattern, and the other side, there you go. I prefer this side. I like the lighter color being my main color and having that be kind of the main side on brioche. Anyway, so I've been putting a lot of time into this one. I have one more repeat to do of the main body. I actually technically still have the second half of the last row of one repeat to do, and then a full repeat, which is 10, I guess, sets of rows. With brioche, you do each color you work a row across for each color. Anyway, so I have one whole repeat left to go, and then there is the third section, which I think is a little longer than one of the repeats. So there's still a pretty good chunk of work to do on this. I am approaching the ends of the first skeins of the yarn, so I need to go ahead and cake up the second skein so that way when I get there, which will probably be really soon, I have that ready to go. So I'm gonna kind of remind myself to do that today or tomorrow so I have that ready. I am really liking how this turns out. The yarn is from Magpie Fibers. I got it at McKinney Knittery here in the DFW area, and yeah, I'm really happy with it and really enjoying it. So that is the project that has had my main attention and focus for the past week or so since I finished Birds of a Feather. But I also have my sock project on the go as usual, and this is another mustache colorway. So one of her Star Wars colorways, Jyn Erso. The first sock is finished. So there's that first sock, and I am in the heel flap of the second sock. So you can kind of see, I'm not going to take the needles out, but I'm in the heel flap. I think I have 2 or 3 more pairs of rows to go on the heel flap, then I'll do the turn and the gusset. So right now I have a lot of yarn because I've done the other end of the cake of yarn for the heel. So my main color is this one, and then coming from the other end is what I'm doing for the heel, so that way it will not interrupt the stripe sequence. So you can see on the top of the sock there that the stripe sequence just keeps on going. The heel doesn't interrupt it. I still get to do my heel flap and gusset, which fits my foot the best, and so that way everything works out as far as the colors go. So I've been working on that. Luke has started a new thing. It is called Code Ninjas. It is it's a franchise, so there might be one in your area. But basically it is a place for kids to learn computer coding. So they work it through like a belt system like you would in martial arts. So they start out as a white belt and they learn using Scratch, which is kind of a drag and more of a visual programming type of thing. And then they go on to learning other languages as they progress up in the system. And by the time they get to black belt, which I think there are like 3 levels of black belt, they will actually have created an app that if they want to actually release it, they can. And this is going to take years. It's not something he's going to do over the next couple of months. This is going to take years to get all the way through the program, but they just opened up a branch here in my local area, and Luke has really been enjoying doing that. So that is something that we decided we wanted him to, or he wanted to do, and we wanted him to do. So basically he's in what is called the drop-in program, where he gets to go 2 hours a week, and they generally like it to split it an hour per day rather than a 2-hour chunk. Just for concentration purposes. So there might be times where I drop him off and I go run an errand, but for the most part I'm using that time as knitting time. So I think this is week 3 that he's done it. He actually started during spring break. and then last week and this week. So now I have an hour, or actually 2 hours a week, that I can sit around and let him do his coding thing and do some knitting. So probably the socks are going to be the thing that I'm working on most during that time. And hopefully I'll be able to maybe get through some socks a little bit faster. Sometimes it takes me a while to knit a pair of socks. But I think that having that extra knitting time will give me more socks. Then my poor neglected Boxy. So I think I'm going to call this episode Miles of Stockinette, because that is really what Boxy feels like. It is just miles and miles and miles of Stockinette. Never-ending Stockinette. And it was in the round for a really long time, and I actually really enjoyed doing it in the rounds because it was mindless knitting. I could read while I was doing it, and although it took quite a long time, you know, it was something that I didn't really mind doing. But now I've split for the front and back. I've actually finished the front. Everything's, I mean, it's so big. That's the thing about Boxy. It's an oversized sweater. But there is the division for the front. Part of this becomes the shoulder and part of this becomes the sleeve. Obviously that's the neck. So now I'm on the back, and I have just about an inch to go before I start doing the shaping on the back. So right now I'm kind of in the back and forth, you know, endless stockinette. And while I don't feel very strongly against purling. I know some people really, really hate purling. I do prefer just knitting in the round and getting stockinette rather than knitting back and purling the other way. So it's kind of gotten to the point where it's a little bit tedious. But I want to finish it. This has been on my needles for so long, and I really, really want to get this done. It's supposed to be my comfy around the house sweater that I throw on whenever I'm feeling a little cold, whether it be from the air conditioner or just from the temperature itself. And there have been a couple of times over the winter that I really wish that I had it. So my goal is to finish it definitely in time for next winter. Hopefully way before then. But yeah, it has kind of really gotten tedious. But I did actually last night sit down and work on it. And I wanted to work on the brioche project. I actually had like a 2-hour chunk of time that I was going to get to knit. But I worked on this for 2 hours. And 2 hours, I only got about an inch knit. So yeah, it's lots and lots of stitches and lots of lots to go, but I'm getting there. Fortunately, the sleeves actually aren't, because they don't come all the way down to the wrist. I think they go right below the elbow, if I remember the picture right. But because part of the shaping that is done up here, you've already got part of the sleeves. Hopefully the sleeves don't take too long. We'll see. Anyway, but I am determined to get that done because I want to cast on another sweater project. And I just kind of feel, there are no rules in knitting, and I don't need to feel this way, but I kind of do feel like I should get that off the needles before I start another sweater project. I might go ahead and start another sweater project before I get it off the needles, but I at least want to feel like I'm making progress on it. I don't want it to go into hibernation. I guess that's what I should say. I may not have to finish it, but I want to be making progress on it. I don't want my Facebook group, we do a WIP Wednesday, so we list all of our works in progress and the progress on them. And so many times over the past couple of months by Boxy, I've written no progress. And I want to change that, even if it's 1 row in a week. I would like to do more, but I would like to at least do that, so that way it's not being no progress. So that's my goal. I'm telling you guys that, so that way maybe you can hold me accountable a little bit, make sure that I'm actually working on Boxy. As far as what I want to cast on, because these really are, these 3 items really are my only works in progress. I do have a leftover stock yarn blanket. That's been no progress for quite a while, but that's kind of a, you know, just ongoing forever project. So I don't always count. I mean, I list it in my works in progress, but I don't like count it as in super active work. Anyway, so I'm really itching to cast on new things. There are some sweaters that I've been kind of eyeing. My knitting guild, we had a program where someone came and talked to us about Amy Herzog's custom fit program, where you can type in your measurements and your gauge and pick one of the sweater patterns, and it will pop out the pattern specific to your gauge and to your size. So I was looking at some of the options for that. So maybe I'll do one of those sweaters. Not really sure. I've got several ideas for sweater projects. I want to try to limit myself to only 1 or 2 sweaters on the needles. I don't want to have, like 8 sweaters on the go. I feel like it's okay to have like 8 hats or cowls or shawls, but for some reason like 8 sweaters, I don't know where that number came from, but whatever. That seems a little excessive, but I do have sweater quantities of yarn in my closet, and some of it has been in my closet for a while. So I would definitely like to do some more bigger projects. So that's another goal. I also, I think I've mentioned this before, I really need to get something in lace on the needles. I haven't done, probably a shawl. I haven't done any lace stitch patterns in quite a while, and I really miss it. I enjoy doing it, and that is something I am very much missing. So yesterday I spent a little bit of time looking at all of the Anna Victoria shawl patterns, trying to decide which one I might want to make next. And I was like, okay, this one. Oh no, but then there's this one. Oh, and maybe I want to do this one. So I don't know that I really narrowed it down, but I did kind of change my cue a little bit on Ravelry. We'll see what happens, but I know that I definitely want to cast on a lace shawl in the near future. Probably I will finish the brioche shawl first, and then maybe, I don't know. I want to get past DFW Fiberfest, I should say that, because yeah, that's only a week away. So yeah, that's kind of my plans. As far as a spinning update, instead of putting it in a separate section, I'll just mention it here. I am almost finished spinning the second single of that braid. I think this weekend one of my goals will be to finish spinning that, probably less than an hour of spinning. We'll finish that, and then I will need to ply. So I will try to fit plying in at some point. If I can at least ply the 2-ply, the one that I'm finishing up, the singles for right now. If I can at least ply that, then that will empty out 2 bobbins for me, and that should be enough for ply away. So I might not be able to also do the chain ply project, but if I can at least empty the 2 bobbins for the 2-ply, that's kind of my goal before ply away, which is right after DFW Fiberfest. Anyway, but I am doing just a little, not a ton of spinning, but a little bit of spinning, which is a lot better than what I had been doing. So that's what I've been working on. So basically for Roundtail Yarns, it is pretty much all DFW Fiberfest prep all the time. Although I realized yesterday I kind of came to the point where I hit the wall. This always happens before a big event, that I've been doing so much dyeing and so much, and then I get to the point where I'm like, I am done. I do not want to dye any more yarn. I can't do it. And I unfortunately hit that point yesterday, and I do still have a couple of things I need to dye. So I'm gonna have to push beyond the wall just for a little bit. But I've actually have some of the adventure, some of the speckle colors going today. Hopefully that'll, that's a little more fun, and hopefully that will help me get over that little wall. I just have 2 batches of self-striping that I need to dye. One of them I definitely need to, because I don't have any of that colorway dyed. The other one is a second batch of a popular colorway, so I wanted to do it just to have a little bit more of that one. So I really have to do at least 1, and I would like to do 2. There are others that I could do, but I told myself if I can just get those 2 done, I will be done. But I did want to talk a little bit about the self-striping. I have 2 new colorways. One is going to be an exclusive for DFW Fiberfest, and one is going to be something that will debut at DFW Fiberfest and then be available on the website and at other shows afterwards. So I'll show you that one first, the one that is going to be available widespread after its debut. So this nice bright colored one, I believe, is going to be called Castle of Maidens. And yeah, so this one will debut at DFW Fiberfest, but then it will be available elsewhere. It will be a regular self-striping colorway. And I think I only have like 8 skeins of this ready for DFW. So even though it is new, I don't have a ton of it. That's one of those things that if I could dye more, I would, but just, yeah, at that point where I need to be shutting down. But since this will be a regular one, I will dye more of it in future for the website and for future shows. So that is the new one. And then the exclusive is going to be this one. So a friend sent me a picture of a field of bluebonnets, and either at sunrise or sunset, so a beautiful, you know, orangey red sky. So this was kind of my interpretation and self-striping of that. It really, you know, looks nothing like the picture when you pull it out as separate stripes. But the green would be the grass, the blue for the blue bonnets, and then the orange and the red for the sky. But anyway, I don't know what this is going to be named yet. I will probably go to Monty Python and the Holy Grail, which is kind of my usual exclusive colorway naming ground. But this will be the DFW Fiberfest exclusive. And I think, if I remember my count, I think I have 20 skeins of this. What I am decided I'm going to do for exclusives is this is going to be exclusive to DFW Fiberfest. It will be called the 2019 exclusive. However, just because it is the 2019 exclusive does not mean that it won't be available at future DFW Fiberfests. So if this colorway goes really well, then next year at DFW Fiberfest, I can bring back a little bit of the 2019 exclusive. So I'm going to make it exclusive to a particular event and not a particular year. There will probably be a 2020 DFW exclusive, but this one will be the 2019 one, but it will only ever show up at DFW Fiberfest. So that's how I'm going to do exclusives. Because in the past I've done exclusives and then I'm sad that they're exclusive and I can never do them again. So this will at least allow the option for it to come back, but again, at DFW Fiberfest. I hope that makes sense. So that is that one. So those are the 2 main new ones. I do have another one that's kind of part of a collection that I dyed. And I don't know, I only have 4 skeins of this other colorway. I don't know if I'm gonna hold it back and wait until I have the other colors in the collection ready, because they really do kind of all go together. Or if I'll go ahead and have it ready at DFW. I haven't decided that yet. I need to decide quickly though. The other thing that I've done is usually I have a basic plan for my booth. Where I kind of map out where things are going to go. But then once I get there, all of the details I've kind of left up in the air. And, you know, like, where are we going to put the samples? I don't know. We'll just kind of throw in here and throw in there. And sometimes it feels very haphazard. Sometimes things, I think, look good. And sometimes I think things do look a little haphazard and thrown together. There were parts of my booth last year at DFW Fiberfest that I was not happy with, and I really wish I had done differently, in particular the samples. So I decided this year I am, and plus it takes hours and hours to set up. I'm usually there for 4, 5, 6 hours setting up, because I'm making a lot of decisions along the way. So I decided this time that I was going to have a more specific plan. And so I do usually get out my graph paper and draw things, but I have a lot of pieces of graph paper where I've got plans. So this is my very basic booth layout. And these are basically the grid walls and the table. And then I actually listed out where the samples are going to be. So on the table, what the samples are. There are going to be a couple of what do you call them, dress forms that have samples. So I've written out which ones are going to be on where. I'm going to have a hanging rack with a bunch of samples kind of all hanging. So I've got the list there. So I've actually got a plan. And I even planned down to exactly which colors on which base go where. So I've counted out how many hooks I need for each color, and I've actually listed out, so this is the order of Merlin, I've actually listed out where those are going to be placed. Because I like to put them, like I like all the purples together and the blues together. I like the color order like that. And instead of trying to decide at the show and sorting, you know, all the colors right there, I've basically done all the sorting in advance. So that way, in setting up, and especially when I have people helping me set up, I can hand them a piece of paper and they can look at it and they can put the colors on the pegs based upon this little map. So, so I've got all these pieces of paper where all the things are mapped out. I always have to be flexible because you never know when there's, you know, a power cord running through your booth or some other random thing that you need to change. But that at least gives me some of the basic ideas. And so I will come prepared with my layout, and hopefully it'll still take hours to set up, but hopefully some of those decisions will have already been made and we can just kind of get to it. So yeah, that's what I have going on. So if you're going to be at DFW Fiber Fest, 1 week from today, I do the setup. There are classes on Thursday, but the vendor hall is not open until Friday because Thursday we need to set up. So if you show up, I hope to see you. Come by the booth. Tell me that you watched the podcast. Yeah, I think that's it on the update for Roundtable Yarns. So for the quarterly knit along, you have just a couple of days left if you're watching this when it's released for the end of the first quarter. So the first quarter ends at the end of the day of March 31st. So on April 1st, I will be doing the drawing, the prize drawing. Remember, there are 5 enamel pins, so 5 different winners. And although the same person could win more than 1 pin if they have multiple entries. So go over to the FO thread in the Ravelry group and make sure to post your finished project or projects for this quarter's knit along. If you needed a reminder on the theme, it was finish any project that is hanging over your head. And go over to the FO thread. There are lots and lots of really great projects that you guys finished. I'm glad that it kind of gave you the push to work through a lot of these projects. So that is almost over. And that means quarter 2 is about to start. So quarter 2 starts April 1st. Do not cast on until April 1st or else it doesn't count. You do have to actually knit or crochet during the quarter. So looking at the voting thread, we had 5 themes that were nominated, and the vote totals seem to have been holding steady for about the past 24 hours. So I feel like this pretty much is the final vote. It was really, really close. The top 2 were 1 vote apart. So very close for how the results went. But the winner by 1 vote is any shawl that uses yarn scraps or mini skeins. So basically we're going to be doing multi-colored, skeins of a shawl, and you want to do something that has minis, so you're gonna, or scraps. So it's not gonna be like a 2-color shawl where you use 2 full skeins. You want to pick a shawl that actually uses small, and I'm not gonna like say, you know, you have to use under 100 yards of each colorway. I won't get that detailed, but you do need to make sure that you are using smaller amounts of a particular skein of yarn. So not a 2-color, 2 full skeins of yarn project. That's not going to work for this. Mini skeins or yarn scraps. So maybe you had a mini skein advent thing that you got just this past at the end of 2018 and you haven't used it yet. This would be a perfect chance to use that. Maybe you've got a big collection of yarn scraps, you know, leftovers that you've been having from other projects. This is a good time to go through those and see how the colors work and to check out some projects. If you guys are interested, we can do we've done this in the past. I can create a bundle in our Ravelry group for project ideas, for shawl ideas. So that way, if you're not sure, well, what shawl patterns are there out there with mini skeins, then I can, in fact, I will go ahead and set up a bundle. I'll make myself a note to do that. I'll go ahead and set up a bundle for this knit along, and I will make it so you guys can add ideas to the bundle. There is a collection of patterns that was released fairly recently that uses a kind of rainbow mini skeins, and then most of them also use a full-size skein. Josh Reich-Swerbinsky had a pattern that I think it's called Tailwind, and then several other designers had patterns. I shared it in my newsletter, I think 2 newsletters ago. So that's maybe a good collection. I'll probably start with that in the bundle as a suggestion. In fact, that might be where I go for my shawl that I pick for this quarter's, the second quarter's knit along, or crochet along. Get some crochet projects in there too. So yeah, there are lots of ideas, but if you need ideas or if you want to share some ideas, I will set aside the bundle, and then I will also open up the discussion thread, so that way you guys can talk about what you're going to make. But remember, it doesn't start till April 1st, so you've got just a couple of days to, I mean, you don't have to start on April 1st, you can start after that. But it gives you at least a couple of days to think about what you might want to make. So hopefully that will be a lot of fun. And for the, especially the second place theme, keep it in mind for the next quarter and nominate it again, and maybe that theme will get chosen next time. So thanks so much for you guys who voted. Thank you everyone who has been participating in the first quarter knit along, and I look forward to seeing what you guys come up with for quarter 2. So we are doing a read along for the Mists of Avalon. If you were, if you're in the Ravelry group for t-shirts and shawls, in the discussion thread, several people talked about wanting to read it, and I had been thinking about doing a read along. So I've set that up and organized it, and I've broken the book down into parts, and I put it in my Roundtable Yarns Ravelry group rather than the podcast Ravelry group. So you can find it over there. We've already, I think a couple of people have finished the first big section. The entire book is broken into 4 segments, also called books. It gets a little confusing. And there are a couple of people who've finished the first book. I'm still catching up to that, but there is no catch up. It's all read at your own pace. So jump in whenever you can. But there is something that I wanted to talk about, something that has been on my mind for a while, and I haven't been sure what to say, or yeah, I haven't been sure what to say, and so I haven't said anything, and I realized that not saying anything has become a problem. So if you have absolutely no idea what I'm talking about, let me kind of back up and give a little history. So Mists of Avalon I read when I was in high school, I think my senior year in high school, and that was when I was started kind of getting into Arthurian literature, and I really, really loved the book. And I also liked the author's writing, and so I read a lot of other books by Marion Zimmer Bradley, and she was a very prolific writer. So I definitely can't claim to have read everything. I know I have not read everything that she wrote, but I have read a lot of her writing. And I consider her one of my very favorite authors. When I was in graduate school, I took a women's biography class, and our project for that semester was to basically pick a woman and pretend we were going to be writing a full-length biography of this woman, but our actual project was to write a chapter out of that full-length biography. And I picked Marion Zimmer Bradley, and the chapter that I wrote about was her role as an editor. She had anthologies, collections of stories that she put together. One called Sword and Sorceress that had like 20-something volumes. One that was based on her created world, Darkover. And then she also had Marion Zimmer Bradley's magazine of fantasy and science fiction. I can't remember the exact title. I think that's something like that. So she basically was responsible for helping a lot of writers, especially female writers, break into the writing world and to become published authors. And so I wrote all about her work, basically as helping other writers. And so that's kind of my history with Marion Zimmer Bradley. So she's always been someone as a writer that I have respected. Apparently, and I did not hear about this when it first came out. In 2014, her daughter came forward. Marion Zimmer Bradley died in 1999. In 2014, her daughter came forward and basically said that she had been molested by her father, and her father was actually a convicted child molester. He went to jail for it, and in fact, I think he died in prison. And she said that her mother, Marion Zimmer Bradley, both knew about the abuse that her husband was doing, and that she, Marion Zimmer Bradley herself, abused her daughter and her son, which obviously sent shockwaves through the fantasy and science fiction community. I just, 2014, I haven't really been in that community online, so I did not see anything about this. In fact, I did not hear about this until sometime last year. Some random comments that I saw on a discussion board somewhere. I was just like, wait, what, what's going on? And I just did a little bit of research, and kind of found out those details. I did not go further into detail because honestly, when it comes to child abuse, I don't want to know all the specific nitty-gritty details. It is enough to know that somebody has done that. That's horrifying enough. I don't want to know the details, so I didn't look up the details. But I have to admit, it made me feel, obviously, it made me feel differently about Marion Zimmer Bradley. So I've been very conflicted, just personally, on a personal level, of what do you do when you find out that somebody who has created work that you enjoy did really, really horrible, horrific things. Can you separate the artist from the work? Or should you completely condemn the work itself, along with the artist? And I think that in the past few years especially, this is a conversation that is being held, across all types of art, not just in writing, but in movies very much, in music. We've got especially recently with the, I guess, the documentary with the Michael Jackson thing. So what do we do when we find out that the people who have been creators did really, really horrible things? What do we do with the work that they've left behind? And I just want to say that on a personal level, I don't have an answer. I think this is something that each of us has to personally decide, and I don't know how I feel. Can you separate the work from the artist? I think so. I feel that with Mists of Avalon, it is such an important work in modern Arthuriana that I don't want to just throw it away. But it definitely is I just, like I said, if you can't tell, I don't really know exactly what to say because I don't know for sure how I feel about it. But obviously by putting forward the read along, and recommending the book to you, I've made a decision in that sense. So even though I might think that I haven't clarified this for myself, obviously I've decided enough that it is something that I am still recommending. Whether or not that is something I should be doing, that's still something I'm not really sure about. but apparently I am going forward with the read along with the recommendations. And then I thought, well, should I talk about this? Should I mention the horrific things that that the author did? And because I was undecided, I kept quiet. I didn't say anything, and that in itself, silence is a decision. And I realized that I shouldn't stay quiet about this. I do need to share the information with you because, like I said, this is something that I think on a personal level, each of us needs to decide for ourselves, whether or not you can read a book written by someone who did horrible things. Can you listen to music by someone who did horrible things? Can you watch a movie created by or with actors or actresses starring in who did horrible things? That is something each of us needs to personally decide, but I think you do need to have the information so you can make that decision. So one of you was looking up something completely different on the author, you know, being interested by reading Mists of Avalon, just wanting to find out some the personal, I think it was ideas about religion that the author had, and ran across all of the information on the child abuse and was rightfully shocked, unexpected when you're, you know, looking up something completely different and you run into all of this, and that I should not have allowed to happen. I should have given you a warning. So Erin, I am really sorry that that I didn't tell you in advance and that you were, you know, just completely surprised by that when you were when you were excited about something and you were looking up information. I should have let you know. I should not have let you just stumble across that information. So I apologize to you, and I apologize to anyone else who may not have said anything, but who also stumbled across the information completely unawares. So I fully acknowledge that that I should have given you a warning and let you decide whether or not this was a book that you wanted to read. So with that in mind, now I am telling you that, everyone, I'm giving you the information. I want you personally to decide whether or not this is a book that you can read. If you do not want to participate in the read-along, don't participate. If you've already started participating, don't feel like you need to continue if you feel like this is not a book that you can read based upon information about the author. It is your personal choice. I am not going to judge anybody for the choice that they make. So I am going to continue with the read along because, like I said, I do think the book by itself is important in modern Arthuriana. But I completely understand that that is not for everybody based upon the personal history of the author. So obviously this is a big topic, and if you want to share your thoughts with me, you can do that, you know, publicly in the discussion for this episode, or if you feel more comfortable, you can send me an email or a message on Ravelry. So, but I did want to lay out the information so that you could make an informed decision, and that you don't stumble across the information and just completely unexpectedly, because that is something that that I should have stopped. I should have given you a warning, so you wouldn't just completely stumble on it innocently. Yeah, I am sorry. I'm continuing to read the book. Maybe in future I will decide that I can no longer support or recommend the book, but for right now, I do want to move forward with the read along, and we'll just you know, see what happens. But I do urge you, if you don't want to know details about child abuse, just don't Google the author. Just read the book, and have it be its own thing, and don't look outside of it. So again, let me know if you want to discuss this any further. And again, I am sorry for not speaking up about this before. So that is it for this episode. 2 weeks from now, I will be at Play-Away. So 1 week from now, I will be setting up for DFW Fiberfest, and then right after that, I will be heading to Play-Away. So that probably means I won't have an episode of the podcast that week. Maybe I could squeeze in something between DFW and Play-Away. I am not going to promise that, but most likely it'll be 3 weeks before I record another episode, unless I do like some special little. I keep thinking, every event that I'm going to take video and then, do kind of a little, not an episode, but just a little video of an event. So maybe I will remember to do that for DFW Fiberfest and maybe even for Play-Away. And share that with you, but most likely the next episode will be in 3 weeks instead of 2 weeks. So thank you very much for watching. Please come over to the Ravelry group for the podcast and post in the discussion thread for this episode. You can also post comments right here on YouTube. I hope that you have a wonderful couple of weeks. Until next time, happy knitting!